So round 4 of ABC data. We'll talk a little about average daily attendance, some student highlights, and some staff highlights. I'm trying to do this in 2 minutes so I don't read from the screen. Building-wide, we're at 85.9%. We can celebrate 34 students with perfect attendance and 118 with 3 or less. I think that's a good target to think about with real life. Sometimes things happen and you can't make it. I'm looking at our grade levels, did a breakdown on percent daily attendance, and notice that as our students get a little older, they tend to come a little more regularly. So congratulations to our seniors for kind of setting that bar high, breaking into 90%. And then also just to break down, sorry. Looking at the number of students that have 3 or less. And, I think it's great when you compare performance data to attendance. It really does matter if you come to school. So these are good numbers to keep in front of us. In terms of staff, this far in second semester, we have recorded 50 student or staff sick days. We do have 9 teachers with perfect attendance, an additional 12 with that same threshold of 3 or less. The 50 sick days, you got to think about second semester starting in January, high flu season. So I'm not alarmed at that number at this point. In terms of behavior, we have 600 teenagers. Mrs. Miller could probably have some anecdotal information. I thought it would be important, or at least interesting, to look at how we compare from last year, looking at trimesters, and where we are now first semester to last Friday. The number of infractions, or green sheets as they're affectionately referred to in the high school, have increased significantly. But one of the reasons that we believe that's happening is we're being very consistent in documenting those instances. Now, also important is that just because there's a green sheet doesn't mean somebody's getting sent home or suspended. It could be just documenting a warning. It could be in the 8th grade world, not being prepared for class, showing up without your books and pencils and no homework, and there would be a green sheet. So in the broad scope of behavior, we are documenting more things, and I think over time that is something that we can consider a good asset in how we run our building. Shifting into the world of CE or curriculum, I've asked Mr. Mishler to come. He's going to talk briefly about the Certificate of Achievement. Board members, I will email you his packet probably tonight, so you can have that. Mr. Mishler.
Good evening. As Brent said, he's going to email you a rather lengthy document that I've been working on for the better part of a year, and it addresses an issue that is not only here at Lake, but is a statewide issue. And that issue is that when we got into the merit curriculum a few years back, we left some students behind and forgot about them. And they are the students who have moderate to severe handicaps that reside here at Hidden Lake, who will never pass Algebra 2. And as a result, will never get a diploma. And we needed to come up with some way to address how they're going to proceed through the entire 4 years here at Hidden Lake High School. So what we've done is we've created something called a Certificate of Educational Achievement, and in it, I put together parameters for students who will be special ed eligible, and they have a legitimate handicap, and who will not be able to complete all the merit curriculum requirements. And in this document, we talked about rigor and the number of credits the student will have to have, the kinds of credits they'll have to have, and we talked about where the credits come from. To that, we talked about the potential that a handicapped student can be mainstream and have an alternate grading system, so that a student with a severe handicap could say, take a social studies class, and with an alternate grading system, get a pass-fail grade in that class. All appropriate for their ability and all consistent with a certain amount of rigor, which is what we were trying to get into this document. We did not want to just say, well, you spent 4 years here at Lake, so long. sure that we have a quality program in place for students and try to meet all their needs. When you look at the document, there are some issues in it. Certificates of educational achievement are not recognized by the state of Michigan, so there are some issues that have to be addressed. We've been dealing with these issues inside of individual education planning meetings, IEP meetings, off and on now as they come up for the last year and a half, and we're struggling with, some of these issues. So part of the madness for the document was, let's get some guidance, but then there are still some other issues out there that we will have no control over, like whether or not an employer will look at certificate of educational achievement from a handicapped student and recognize that as something equivalent to a diploma. We don't know how that's going to work. We do know that students who do not get diplomas and have certificates will have a slightly more difficult time entering the community college level. That part we do know, and we've tried to address that here in the document, and we're trying to do some, down the road, we'll be doing some kind of liaison work with some community colleges in an effort to kind of smooth this process out. So in a nutshell, in the next few hours, you'll be getting a rather lengthy document called Certificates of Educational Achievement, and it's aimed at a very small group of kids. My anticipation at this point would not be more than 10 or 11 per year who would get a certificate, and it's aimed at students with severe handicaps that are students here at Hook Lake High School. So that's it in the next nutshell. Thank you.
Mr. Mishler, I think it's appropriate at this point to say that we're very fortunate to have Jim Mishler on our roster here. He's really helped us clean up some things. I think there was a presentation before about our least restrictive environment, how we were in violation. We've moved the programming for our special needs students in a very positive direction, and I believe that we may be a little bit ahead of the curve in some of the ways. This is just one way that I think we're doing a great job in serving our students with disabilities, and I really want to credit Jim for his work. And with that, my laptop fell asleep. But we'll move on. Talking a little bit about college and career readiness standards. You heard me talk about Explore, Plan. So we'll look a little bit at some statistics. The EPASS systems, Explore, Plan, and ACT. We'll talk briefly. I only have about 40 more slides. Grade point average, and then the real meat of the presentation is on 21st century learning. So crunch the numbers real quick. Any questions? Let me tell you what you're looking at. The number next to each assessment, so in English, there's a number that says 54, and that percentage is 48.65%. That's the number of students, or the percentage of the 8th grade students that met or exceeded the college readiness benchmark for 8th grade. Now, I get a little geeked about data sometimes, but when I'm looking at 8th grade and 9th grade, and I see us hovering in that 40 to 50 range, it's a good thing. I don't get alarmed about the all 4 areas, because that is exceedingly difficult to meet or exceed. And if you think about what those standards are, each grade has a specific number, and you have a little bonus packet there where you'll actually see the benchmarks given for each test, and then how we compare nationally. So if you're interested in that information as well, if you have an 8th, 9th, or 10th grader, they'll be bringing home that document, actually 7th, 8th, 9th, or 10th. Thanks, Mrs. Tyre, for letting us test for 7th graders. And those benchmarks are there for you. The 7th grade data is actually measured at an 8th grade standard. So I'm looking through next year's incoming 8th graders, and I see some numbers that are pretty exciting. I can only hope what that's going to look like when they get to their junior year. There won't be a quiz. Changed up just a little bit. This is the percentage that met or exceeded the benchmark, but this time I actually threw that number in. So you can see that in English, the standard is a 15. We had 66, almost 67% of our student body score above that. So what's happening in ELA in our district is positive. It needs to continue, and I like to hear what's happening at the lower grades all the time. But also look at the number or percentage in science. So when I hear 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade diving into a new curriculum that is focusing on science and inquiry and project-based, I'm hoping that we see some of those numbers increase. Our ACT results came in. We do not have the disaggregated data from College Board yet. I just have raw scores. So these numbers are a little dirty, sure. You might want to wait before they're published. This is not at all MME. This is just straight ACT from March. We had 103 juniors take it. Our average composite is a 19.9. That's okay. Looking at last year's group, we have 20.1 in the average ACT composite. This year's test, 19.9. I like that trend. I like where we're standing. Look at the grade point averages. Again, this is just straight from the top, A through Z, 2.73, 2.69. That's a B minus. So our kids are working hard. I want to look back. I haven't been able to do this yet, and see what impact that 70% threshold has had. I gotta believe that it's had some impact. In a book called The Global Achievement Gap, Wagner cites 7 survival skills for the new world of work. I think a number of you were at the community forum earlier where we started talking about what do you need? What do you need from the Houghton Lake High School graduate? These are the things that we're seeing, again, trending, that the world of work is expecting. We believe that the academic performance of our students is our primary purpose, but we also know we have to get them ready to go out and get a job. So some of these skills, and some people call them soft skills, I'm starting to believe that they're the hard skills. We want to make sure that we're getting kids that can effectively communicate orally and in written form. That you know how to get information, you can analyze it. You understand where the voice is. You can work collaboratively, and I can go on and give you many sermons on each one, but I won't. We have a shifting landscape, and it's exciting times. We've been living in a brick and mortar world since John Dewey at the beginning of the 19th century. Now we're moving into what is being termed brick and click. Not only do we come to a school, but we also live in a virtual world where we use our mouse or an iPad, and we click our way through information in different learning modes. Governor Snyder has said, and now it's coming through the Michigan Department of Ed frequently, it's anytime, anywhere, any way. And that's where our kids need to be, and we want to talk about how we can get them there. Michael Horn wrote a book called The Disrupted Classroom. It's about 2008, 2007. And he defines blended learning as any time a student learns in part through online delivery with some element of student control over time. That's a new variable for student control. Been living bell to bell, right? 8 to 3. So some control over time, place, path, and or pace, and at least in part in a supervised brick and mortar place away from home. So looking at some of those soft skills, trying to create independent young men and women, they need to get out of the house. And they need to go and work with their peers and collaborate on projects. So that's just a snapshot on blended learning. There are 4 types of blended classrooms, and you heard Jen Williams talk a little bit about using the iPads and using iPods. I've been in Collins where I've seen the kids moving around, and sometimes they go over to a terminal and they're doing a study island exercise, or they're working on a website. That would be a rotation example. Those things are happening around us all the time. The flexible schedule is more of a hybrid. So on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, if you're taking a hybrid class, you don't come to the brick and mortar place. You go do your work. And that teacher is online and he's monitoring the project, or she's monitoring the project. So it's really changing the way that the school day works. And we're not talking about 2nd and 4th graders now. We're talking about 11th and 12th graders in this environment. The third point is a self-blend. And we also have that happening right now, where students select in their registration to take a course through Michigan Virtual University or Michigan Virtual High School. So they come here to the brick and mortar world, but 1 hour a day, they're in the library and they're doing online learning with a virtual teacher, submitting everything online. And you'll hear a little bit more about that at the end. The fourth is an enriched virtual, and that's really university world, where you live in a connected virtual classroom, but you also have the ability to sit together and work on projects. So it's not just a online experience. It is working face-to-face in collaboration. And again, these definitions come from Michael Horn, who is founder of the Innosight Institute. I'd like to invite Amy Bontico to come up at this time. She's going to talk a little bit more about Mission Virtual.
Hello. I am the mentor for Michigan Virtual High School, and I am very excited about these results. In the past few years, you can see the trend where we have just increased from 3 students, and now this semester, this school year, we are at 72. That's just a phenomenal increase in my opinion. We have 30 completed last semester. We have 42 pending this semester. Out of the 42, I do have 6 that are totally complete with the class already, so that's pretty exciting. Jack Thompson, he's our representative from Michigan Virtual High School, and he said that Houghton Lake is one of our top schools, and most schools have a 50% dropout rate, but as you can see, we don't have that. So I like to brag about my kids because they achieve a lot and do so well. I see a few of them here, so thanks, I get to brag. And Mr. Bunn is going to come up, and what's next? Online learning.
Quick handout. Dave is going to use one of the classroom technologies that's available called Mobi.
Yeah, hi, my name is Dave Bunn. I teach biology, microbiology, genetics at the high school. Sorry, I'm pretty loud usually, so I don't know if I need this, but I just wanted to really quick, this is like a 20-minute presentation, so I put a little code up there. If you have a phone, you can scan it. It'll take you to this or the website. I'm going to cut this down to a lot less than that, I promise. But I just wanted to show a couple things about what Mr. Kreiderman was talking about with the idea of this hybrid blended classroom. And it's really something that is cutting edge, and very few schools in northern Michigan have tried this. There are a lot of schools downstate trying this, and a lot of positive results. But what we wanted to talk about, this would be his number 2, and this would be the idea. It's a classroom experience where we have traditional classroom teacher-student interaction, but we also have online, home, self-paced curriculum, where these students can, as long as they get to point B by a certain time, we don't necessarily worry about how they get there. They work at their pace. They try different avenues to get there. As long as they get there and are successful, you know, these are our juniors and seniors that are going to go to college and have that same experience. We don't want them to fall into that freshman trap where they, just because they only have class on Tuesday and Thursday, I don't have anything to do Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Well, you do. You have things, you have places to get. And so that's what I wanted to show real quick. Some of the stuff Mr. Kreiderman already mentioned, and I'm just going to skip through it very quickly, but why do we do this? Because what we're seeing is this is how many of us went to school, and this is what it looked like. And as you've seen from the elementary and from the middle school, this is what we don't necessarily see, nor do we want to see this, where the teacher is the sole provider of all knowledge and information. When the kids come into class and they have an iPad, an iPod, an earbud, a cell phone, and they're talking to their buddy, and me as they walk in, how you doing, Mr. Bunn? All at the same time. I mean, I would pull a muscle if I tried to do all that. And they do it regularly. So we, instead, what we end up with, if we try to teach them in this particular way, we get this. Which obviously we don't want. So we need a strategic change in the way that we're instructing, and you're seeing with these elementary students measuring. And I mean, this is where we want them to go. We want them to be able to go find information, analyze it for themselves, come up with a conclusion, and then we are helping them get there and come up with this information. And that's the strategic change Mr. Kreiderman is talking about. And this is what students want. They need engagement. They're living in the most stimulating time that we have ever seen with all this stuff hitting them, and we need to get them there and teach them that way also. So I'm not going to show you this entire video, but this is who we're teaching. This is what you guys as parents see at your home also. it's just a different avenue of learning. And so that's what we're trying to accomplish with this hybrid idea. How do we do it? Very, very quickly, we use most of the things that we already have at our disposal. All right, we need multimedia internet resources, which all effective teachers are doing. And YouTube is, some districts block it totally, but it's a useful tool as long as we are filtered. I mean, as long as we're filtered and we know where we're going, they see it every other hour of the day except when they're in our classroom. So why not embrace it and use it? And so that's one of the tools that we can use. There's Discovery Education, videos, online lessons. There's just a wealth of resources that we're going to try and implement into this. We need course management systems, which we already are using, one of which is called Moodle. Several of us in the district are using this, and how it looks basically is a student can come in, they can log in, and they can see a video of me explaining something. They can go to assignments. Students that miss can come in and get things that they need. So it's a way to make learning 24/7. There's free online website creators. I could go on. This is a link to my own personal website. I'm a tech geek, as you can tell. So what does this blended classroom look like? I'm just going to go to, this was an assignment that my students did where I videotaped them watching a videotape of me explaining how to do a virtual lab online. I mean, that's about as geeky as it gets. But that was my, yeah, sorry. But this is the experience that we can provide them as they go on to college and get some of these 21st century skills. So the advantages to this that Mr. Kreiderman really would like me to address to the board as well as the community is this allows us to differentiate our instruction. We all know, as a father of 3, they are all very different. Our students are all very different. We need to provide multiple avenues for them to learn and accomplish the goals that we set out. This can allow education to be 24/7, brick and click, like Mr. Kreiderman said. I have students emailing me at 9:30 at night asking me questions about assignments. I had to tell them that I'm in bed long before that. But the point is that we're accessible at whatever amount we wish, and we can help these students be successful, and this would be another avenue to that. Let the students get where they need to be on their pace.
Everyone is logged in to Moodle.
This is
If you're listening to this.
a day that I had to go to a conference, and so this is what the students sat down to, was me. They thought sub day, they got fun. And they're used to it now. But when I first started to do this, their faces would drop. Sub day. Oh, I'm sure there were all sorts of things going through their mind, but this is where we are. This collaboration Mr. Kreiderman mentioned. This was a video that I took from my screen. I walked out of the library while they were entering data, and they were all at separate places. You can see up at the top, these are all different users. This is a spreadsheet. They're punching in data together. They're chatting. I'm not even in the room as they're putting this stuff in. And then we came back and we discussed it, and I showed them what they were doing. I mean, it's interactive. We can anytime, anywhere be learning. One slide that I wanted to show, we went down and saw Fraser High School down by Detroit, and this would be, Fraser would be described by many as, just a middle class, average, urban high school. And this is, the blue lines represent the hybrid model, the red lines represent the regular model. And you can see they compared it to their own classes at the same time, and this achievement, I mean, they had more students in the BC range, less in the E range, but it's just another avenue for students to be successful. It's not right for every student, but it's just another chance we can offer our students to be successful and get them to reach our goals. And I guess the one last thing is, how is this different from the online model? Is in this blended course, students still report to class. However, on certain days, they may not meet physically, they may meet virtually. Just it's a really unique experience for our students that I've mentioned to many of them, and oh, you gotta be kidding me. Some of the students that took my class this semester are very upset because they're not gonna get to do it now because it's happening. We're trying to make it happen next year as a pilot. In a blended course, we use our opportunities, we use our internet resources that we have available, but it's not, I've had some teachers say, oh, we're gonna be replaced. No, teachers are just using the technology. We're just moving the information, making the students go find the information for themselves and analyze. And finally, what we're trying to do is to better instruct today's learners which this is a very typical model of today's learners. They're collaborating, they're working online, they're finding information, but if any of you have young students or young children at home, this is what we're going to be seeing, and it's happening more and more. And I mean, my 3-year-old can work one of these things, and it's amazing. She teaches me things, I think, and these are tomorrow's learners, and that's who we're trying to gear this system for. And so that's what we're trying to do.